The Starz series Vida premiered its second season recently. The show is even more critically acclaimed in season 2 than it was in season 1. I'm Tony Ruiz of Gold Derby, here with one of the show stars, Mishel Prada. And Mishel, I wanted to ask you first off, now that you have a second season, the first season was 6 episodes, and you have a 10-episode second season. What has been the biggest shift in being able to go from 6 to 10 and having that expanded episode tally?
Well, season 1 was really my, first proper TV job like that. And I went right into it. I was a recast. So I came in. I was the last person to kind of come in, and I didn't really have time to think about it. And I've also have never had to go back to a character, so that was interesting. And I remember at the end of season 1 being exhausted and thinking, wow, this was just a month and a half of shooting. And I know people that do 22 episodes on a show, and what that meant. And then going into season 2 with the extra episodes, it was great to kind of push yourself to those limits, because as we see in season 2, Emma has a hard time season 1, but season 2 really takes a stronger toll on her as just a human. And I felt that as an actor, halfway through, thinking, oh my gosh, like I still have so much more to go. I have another month and a half to go. And then but also getting the scripts is always so exciting for us, because Tanya's always bouncing around ideas and kind of teasing us with stuff, and seeing how we react to it or whatnot, but we never know what's really going to end up on the page. So even at the final episode, we didn't really know how it was going to end, even as we were shooting 9. So that was really beautiful. And then seeing just the characters that got brought in and realizing, wow, we have all these extra episodes to flesh out the world, because obviously it's about these 2 sisters, and it's about them coming back home, and issues of identity and persona, and crafted ideas of what you present. But we get to sit in this world and then expand it and bring in new characters, bring in new people into the building. So that was also really exciting for us, because we're a little tight-knit family, and then getting to open it up to some more amazing actors. It was really, really cool.
Well, and you talk about the fact that this really is kind of your breakout role on at least on television. So to jump in with this type of a character, I mean, this is a very complicated character. So how did you tackle this character from the beginning? How did you approach her?
Well, I work with an acting coach, Marjorie Ballantyne, and there was a lot of, I mean, at the risk of sounding like Lynn, my sister on the show, it felt like there was a lot of, just kind of, I don't know, something in the air that was moving things into this way, because I sat with my acting coach before, I mean, the show was even on my radar, and was like, okay, I haven't been in class in a long time. I want to do something that's really, challenging and out of my comfort zone. I want you to give me roles to perform on stage that you think I'm not good at. And a lot of it were these, women kind of coming into scenes and not apologizing for their space, and being able to say kind of some of sitting in there for a really long time, and then booking a role that felt like every weakness that I had, which was this just, I'm in life, I'm a lot more like Lynn, truly. So getting to, as an actor, have a role that scared you a little bit and challenged you, but I still understood. I understood what it was like to be, just your childhood stuff, man. We hold our parents accountable for everything. God forbid they ever had a bad day, or they maybe had their issues with being a parent. Maybe they didn't want to be. Maybe they were just depressed for a good year of that. Like, heaven forbid any of that happened. We hold them accountable for the rest of our lives for ruining it. Starting with those feelings as well, feelings of abandonment, feeling of shame, and feeling of being alone, and maybe believing that love isn't a safe place. So you start with that, and then you protect it. So that, and you fiercely protect it. And I think that is kind of for me where we started with Emma.
Yeah, and Emma is so intense. She has so
Yes.
much. She has such a wall up around her. At the beginning of the show, and you slowly start to peel layers back. With a character that intense, was it hard, particularly shooting it in such a short time frame? Was it hard to go in and out of Emma? Did she kind of stay with you after you stopped shooting?
I mean, if I'm honest, I was a little scared going into season two that she just wouldn't be there anymore, because like I said, I'd never had to go back to a character. I mean, it was so new to me, this idea. I'd done indie films with some of my friends and booked smaller parts on indie films and whatnot, but this is a very meaty endeavor, and it was kind of cool because even just in the chemistry read with Roberta Colindres, who plays Nico this season, uh, I was a little nervous going into that because I was like, oh my gosh, what if she's not there? This is my first chance to see if that, and she was ready to come back out. So that was really great. But then I think there was also a lot for me to learn as a actor, that I've been doing acting my whole life, but professionally, and then also getting the opportunity to be handed such a multi-layered role, to really just also create self-care for myself at the end of it, because I just kind of go for it, and I'm like, whatever, it's fine, we'll figure it out. And even at the end of season one, Lynn makes this really disgusting cocktail that had like milk and lemon, which curdled the milk and all that stuff, and they're just like, we can make you a fake version of it. And I'm like, no, I want to drink it because I want it to be gross. And then afterwards, like, feeling so gross the next few days and being like, you know what, you can just not drink the real thing, it's okay. uh, so, anyways,
You don't have
so
to go
going
method
into
all the
this
time.
season, yeah, they're like, come on, like, some things you can pretend. And then going into this season, but also just emotionally, um, learning what it was like to just have some self care, seeing a therapist afterwards and really peeling apart what's you and what's not. I had never really had to experience that and understand what that was, and thinking, oh wow, this is, I used to experience panic attacks a while ago, and then I, didn't anymore. And then this season, my experience is panic attack, and then I started feeling that old instinct come up, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, we need to like figure this out." And it also helps. I mean, Melissa Barrera who plays my sister, is just such a support in real life, and really, I think through some really tough days where you're just like, oh, I'm so exhausted, she's like, you got this, let's do this. And that I feel like I won the lottery with between Tanya Saracho, our showrunner, and Melissa and our cast. Like, it truly is a family.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that because the show uh, requires all of you as actors
Yeah.
to do some really scary things, both from a dramatic standpoint, sometimes from a kind of from a sexual standpoint.
Yeah.
It asks a lot of you. So what is the atmosphere on the set like? How does Tanya Sriracha, the showrunner, how does she create an environment where you guys are willing to take that stuff on?
Well, I mean, with so many women on set, the sexual stuff is a lot easier when you kind of feel that you're being portrayed from a female gaze. So that's something that's really interesting. And also, I think you really connect with what the characters are revealing in their sexuality, or fighting from, or running from. And then it becomes less about revealing skin, but more about just revealing intimacy, revealing emotion. So when you feel that those scenes are crafted in a way that are truly part of the story, it feels like a natural thing to do. And then, with I've heard a lot of people talk, about that specifically, and I get it, because especially in Latin culture, this idea of women kind of enjoying themselves and being sexual and not just sensual, and getting to have a female DP, shoot us from this female gaze. You feel protected, but it's a story that we need to tell, especially with my character being queer, to normalize this sexuality. I think we really also sometimes attach ourselves to this idea of anything other than missionary style is kinky, but and so there's like this shame of, oh well, I kind of like this, and it's fine, whatever you like, just find somebody that likes the same thing and talk about it. And I think if we can make moves even with our show and creating that space for each other just to feel more comfortable with sexuality and with the things that we like, that might, I mean, I was even surprised because I'm a lot pruder than I realized. Like sometimes I read the script and be like, what's that? And then I talk to somebody else and they're like, oh, I love that. Let me tell you how it goes. And they're just giving me all the things, and I'm Googling, and I got a virus this season, Googling some stuff on my computer. and, you know,
That's dedication.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I fully got rid of it, so I might need to get a new computer. But you know, it's fun to explore and to normalize these things, because the more space that we create for each other, the easier it is just to live. And life can be a little difficult sometimes. So if we can find less things to be ashamed about, then I think that's a good thing.
And do you think that with a show like this that is Latinx both in front of and
Mm,
behind the scenes, that's queer both in front of and behind the scenes, do
yeah.
you think that a show like this helps get us past that point where we always have to say, oh, look at the representation here,
Yeah.
so that it will create more opportunities? How do you think this show works in that context?
You know, I think there's we discuss it a lot, because there's sometimes a point where like we get it, it's Latinx, like we're all there, obviously, what's the, you know, and it's Latinx people telling their own story, what's the big deal? But it is a big deal right now. And I think with the show you start seeing why it's so beautiful. It doesn't take away from anything else that's already been created. It just adds to the stories. I mean, we have so much television on TV right now, so why not let people tell their own stories, and really just not be afraid to take those risks. Because I think for so long, a show like ours hasn't been allowed to fail. It fails, and then it's like, that's why we don't make those shows. But nobody ever does that for buddy cop movies or a procedural. If it fails, it's not like that's why we don't make procedurals, because it didn't. It's just that one just maybe didn't work out for whatever reason. So I think until we get to the point that we have that luxury, it is important for that representation to be at the forefront, and for us to just really task ourselves in these telling these stories and letting ourselves just express the way that we see the world, which is just, you know, a lot of times emotionally it's the same, but maybe there's just like a little bit of different food on the table.
So how has this, this how has this experience going forward, how has it changed your career? How has it changed you as an actor?
Yeah.
What have you noticed in terms of the response for you?
There's a lot of things. I mean, I owe a lot to Tanya and, you know, the people at Big Beach, Robin Schwartz, Stephanie Langhoff, and then of course Stars, Marta Fernandez, Chris Albrecht, because our show, especially season one, was all fresh faces. So they really hired who they thought was the best actor for the job. And I think a lot of times people, it's business, you know, it's show business. So they don't get to do that. But I I feel really lucky in a lot of ways to not only have been brought on to any show, because I was trying to book, you know, two lines on a show to get some credits, but to be trusted with a character like this, it changed my life, not only, you know, with just as an actor, but I think as a person. I think I forgot how much I wanted to be around so many Latin people, just kind of talking and eating and just living their lives, because I grew up in Hialeah and in Miami, and that's how I grew up. And living in LA, I think it was easy to even go months without speaking Spanish. And then being on a set like this, it's just constantly back and forth, back and forth. So I just, even personally, I feel really, really proud to get to be brought into this family, and just be reminded of, you know, we got stories to tell too. I know I really was inspired by Moonlight. That was the first time I'd ever seen a Miami that I grew up in. It wasn't, you know, Art Deco, Ocean Drive. That was a part of it. But could you imagine if the only stories you heard of Los Angeles were Malibu and Hollywood Boulevard? We're getting to do that. We're getting to show a very LA story and getting to invite people into our living rooms and into our, you know, messy family drama and just see a different part of LA that isn't the way I think these neighborhoods are usually portrayed. It's, you know, it's what you see in Vida. It's life.
Well, it certainly is, and it's a really, really just fascinating, wonderful show. Mishel Prada, thank you so much. Congratulations on season 2. Everybody log on to goldderby.com. Be sure to make your predictions for the Oscars, Emmys, Tonys, Grammys, and we'll stay tuned for more interviews throughout the season with awards contenders. Mishel, pleasure to talk to you.
It was such a pleasure to talk to you too. Thank you, Tony.